Hi folks, welcome back to another episode of View of Two.
Hello.
This is the impromptu version where we are discussing subjects where we haven't done too much research, but it's it's about how we feel about the subject matter.
Yeah, and sometimes we don't know how we feel until we start talking about it.
Yeah, and so it might come across as a little bit unstructured, but I feel it's more natural and more. It flows easier if we do that.
Yeah. So we call these conversations impromptu.
Impromptu,
yeah.
Impromptu.
And how this one came about is because both Hiram and myself come from a certain religious background. As you know, we both used to be members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm still a member, and Hiram isn't. And as we were talking about these things, we then just looked at high demand religions in general. And then
But then we also unpacked it as to high demand cultures as well. Anyway,
right.
Yeah.
So, as I was saying, is we then went from high demand religions to trying to understand high demand cultures. And so one of my things was there's no such thing as a non-high demand culture. You know, aren't all cultures high demand? That's the whole thing about a culture is we have a social contract, so to speak. And a social contract is a contract that's not written, right? It's just how society decides to live. And we decide within society, within that culture, that if you want to remain a member of that society, a welcome member of that society, there are certain rules, there are certain laws, whether they're written or not written.
Tacit,
thank you. That we bind ourselves to. And so we then again kind of started from our religion and to say, if you decide, because our religion and our culture is so intertwined, if you decide to leave the religion, are you leaving the culture? Can you leave a culture and not leave the religion? Can you leave the religion?
That's where the
leave
rub is. Yeah, because when does the religion stop becoming the culture?
Yeah.
And what I mean by high demand is that there's such a huge emphasis placed on the hierarchy of demands in your life that it almost becomes your identity. And so you become part of that culture or that religion on a high identifier level.
Yeah.
So it's like really up there on your, like for example, if you're free to roam in the principles or the doctrine of that belief structure.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the things you were saying to me is comparable to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in terms of high demand religion would be
Hasidic or even Orthodox Judaism. Is the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah. And
some fundamentalist groups as well that live out in the boondocks.
Yeah.
Basically, it goes
and
around.
Some Islamic
Yeah, some more extreme Islamic views as well, or religions.
I also think.
Just that high demand, meaning that there is a great emphasis placed on how much time and identity you have with the religion, as well as certain draconian laws, as well as the fact that it was generally started. When I say draconian, I mean extreme.
Okay.
Not like evil, but extreme.
Okay.
And also the other one is that they're usually started by an individual who's seen as being given godlike powers. There's another one.
Right.
So almost like he becomes a godlike being to them with the ability to do certain things.
And so my thing is, aren't all cultures that way, right? It might not be an individual who's seen as godlike, but if we live in a country like South Africa, we have certain laws that if you go out of those laws, they are our highest thing. So they're almost like our God. We choose to live those laws.
On a societal level.
That's a culture, you know.
Not an individual, yeah.
Yeah, but if you do something to me that breaks that law, right?
You got to go and defend yourself.
I have to go and defend, but that law is so important that it is godlike.
But those are written laws. Those are not unwritten laws.
And that's where it becomes a little bit uncomfortable, right? Because in religions, and of course I haven't had an experience of all of these religions. So for those of you who are in the religions that we've mentioned, perhaps you can educate us a little bit more.
Please do.
But in those, yeah, we really, really are interested. But for the things that aren't written, isn't that a cultural aspect of it and not a religious aspect of it? So is it fair to just say the religion is such? But it does get messy.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is over time, you might find a religion started out a certain way, but because the culture becomes predominant, the religion becomes the culture.
You see, and that's for me is where it becomes really, really difficult.
It's like a mashed potato mix.
Yeah. And because for me, I wasn't born in this culture and not born in this religion. I was something else, and then decided to adopt the religion. I don't feel like I've adopted the culture, and it took me, by the way, a very, very long time to understand the difference between the religion and the culture. And the reason why I had to understand the difference is because I was so focused on the religion, I didn't realize there was an underlying subculture that I'm not part of.
When did you realize it was?
Talking to you and talking to Spelele.
Okay.
You know.
So both of us have come from I'm a fifth generation, and he's second, or pretty much second.
Second first.
Yeah, because from 1978 was only from that time on, so he would be second generation.
Well, no, he got baptized around the same. Like his mom got baptized, and then she waited for him to be 8 to be baptized. Okay. So I don't know if he becomes second or first generation at that point.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. But what had happened is, for those people who had a problem with the cultural aspect of this religion and the religious aspect, but we're really talking more about the culture here. And maybe Spelele is more vocal about the cultural issues than you are. Yeah. But you have also spoken to me about the cultural aspects. It was difficult for me to understand because I'd never... Sorry for that, we're around cars. We know Umhlanga, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Umhlanga.
Yeah. So I didn't understand what he meant about this oppressive, as he felt, cultural aspect to a religion that he had adopted. And so that's when I realized. And what I've also realized is there's a way that people who were born into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints interact with society. That I, as a person who's been baptized into the church, don't necessarily interact with society and don't interact with my family members. And for those of you who were born in the church, if you could perhaps suss it out and explain it in a way that I can understand, please do so. But I have realized that there's a difference between people who join in their later years and those who are born into it. And I think for me, how I've been trying to understand it and explain it is, we as people who join at a later stage have a clear understanding of the religious aspect of it.
Yeah.
A clearer understanding, fair enough. Understanding of the religious demands. We then come into the cultural aspect of it.
And sometimes the
afterwards.
culture is kind of strange, but you've got to sort of like almost buy into the culture. You might accept the religion, but the culture is another part of it.
So I don't know if I've bought into the culture.
No, I'm not saying you have. I'm saying that it's a choice you have to make. Is, am I going to adopt this culture of Mormonism with the religion, or am I going to just say, look, I take the religion? And it's a difficult one because you might feel a bit shunned because of your inability to adopt the culture. Kind of like how you would feel shunned if you decide the culture of Zuluism is not for me. People who are Zulu will then say, but you're not Zulu enough, and almost shun you for that. Not shun you, but you feel apart from.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the gist of this conversation that we're having.
It's kind of that both cultural and religious cultures are very, very similar.
Yeah, I think it's to say, as a Zulu person coming and joining the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints,
which is predominantly a white, Americanized white religion.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are certain things that I've been asked to stop doing. Lobola is one of them. Ancestral.
Although we do place a lot of emphasis on ancestors.
Yeah, but ancestral worship in the way that I do it.
Okay.
My dress code has had to change.
Big time. No read dancing for you.
For me, you know. And these things are really a big problem because they are central to being a Zulu person. They're central to our culture. They're central to our identity. And I have to let go of that identity in order to belong to the religion. So where does religion stop and culture start, and culture stop and religion start is a very interesting thing. But what I'm trying to say
Excuse
is...
the wheelbarrow, folks.
Yeah. So yeah, that's really the rub. And so when you stop doing those things within your culture, when you stop being able to slaughter animals, to speak to your ancestors, when you have to go to your parents and say lobola might be an issue, are you not shunned there? But also, can you blame people for shunning you? Are you not rejecting their way of being? Have you not broken that social contract? Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there is a risk of there is the risk of having that happen, especially when it comes to a religion like a very family-centric religion like Mormonism, where, as we were discussing, in the Mormon doctrine...
Do you want to start again?
No. In the Mormon doctrine, this is going to happen all the time.
Yeah.
In the Mormon doctrine, we are taught that Christ paid the price for two things. He paid the price for your physical resurrection, which is a free gift, and he paid the price for your sins, which is something that you will then have to work out with yourself and him. So in Mormonism, those aren't free gifts. One is free and one has a requirement. And part of that requirement is that to reach that higher level where you can return back to God, it is done on a family basis. So a husband and a wife. Exaltation, yes. Living with God again. That requires a husband and a wife to be sealed in a temple with an ordinance which qualifies them for that. So as individuals, they can receive salvation, but they cannot receive exaltation apart. They have to be a unity. So when that unity is broken by one of the people deciding that they no longer believe, there's a massive upheaval in that family, whether it just be between you two or with the entire family at large, because we believe in being sealed as an entire family unit.
Brothers, sisters,
everyone
uncles,
is
cousins,
sealed.
we're all
So
one.
you'll find, even if you are join the church after your adult years and after your marriage, you will then be sealed to your children separately. So the family unit is seen as extremely important, specifically in the LDS faith. And so when you withdraw yourself from that religion and the culture, it's a divorce from those things, and it's extremely destructive to the family unit in an eternal perspective.
The same way, though, for the Zulu culture, is we slaughter animals to get us together with our family. That's how we choose to seal, if I can use that word, with each other.
And also to solve problems as well. No?
Yeah, to solve problems, to ask for help. And the question becomes, as a person who chooses to stop doing things that are cultural, have I not broken that contract that we have together? And please excuse us if we seeming to only concentrate on two things. We're trying to be very sensitive and talking about things we know, rather than to try and put a macro umbrella to it. But so is it a surprise then when people start to shun me? Whether it's written down or not is a different thing. But
You're seen as other now.
Yeah, but am I not other? Am I not other? If I've chosen to be
you're other
things,
in terms of the religious and maybe cultural contract that you had with it, but in terms of your family status, how I am still as a family member, that shouldn't change.
But it does.
It does, but my question is, should it?
I'm saying it should, and it does, because as a family, we decide this is how we live. These are the things that make us
I'm talking
a
about the
family.
extended family.
Yeah.
Okay.
As an extended, so for me, when we slaughter,
Yeah.
depending on what we're slaughtering and when we're slaughtering,
And why?
but there are certain and why, very true. There are times when we ask our family to come with us,
Yeah.
right, and to join us and to eat meat with us.
Because it's part of that family
Because
culture.
it's part of that
Yeah.
family culture. And so when I decide that I'm not going to do those things, I am breaking up the core things that make that family, and so should I be surprised if that family feels like we're no longer
A
family
unit,
as we understood it, so the question we were asking ourselves is, how flexible are we in terms of that social contract that we have down to the nucleus of being a family? At what point do we feel rejected? At what point, if we're being honest, do we reject? And how do we then heal?
Well, that's what I
heal
was.
that thing?
Yeah, I was thinking, how can we heal? And we had this discussion a little earlier about when one leaves a powerful cultural or religious contract. That tearing away is very traumatic for the individual, and it usually occurs under the covers, so people aren't aware of what's going on. And when you do pull away, there could be a lot of pain involved and a lot of anger and frustration. And if you, as one who I've left, comes to me and tries to either console me or question me, there might be an aggressive outburst or a judgment or some negative feedback from the individial.
Can I give an example?
Yeah, sure.
So, Spelele, you've allowed me to use your name.
Oh, has
so
he?
well. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
When Spelele was going through his own individual questioning, is the
Transition,
best
yeah.
way. I don't know if it's transition.
Semi-transition.
Questioning, just trying to understand who he is and how he fits into this culture. It was very traumatic. It was incredibly traumatic, as it would be for anyone who is born into a certain culture, myself included in my understanding what it means to be Zulu, but I kind of dealt with that in our second vlog.
Yeah.
It is a very traumatic thing to go through when you're questioning everything about yourself. It is a scary world. It is a lonely world. It's a frustrating world because you almost feel
To
like
identify as well.
everything
Yeah.
that you thought you were is questioned. And I think what happens is when you're going through that, because it's such an internal fight, that's the best way I can put it, trying to figure your way through this, you don't understand that it's not just internal. For those people around you, they feel it. They feel that aggressive
It's almost like the
nature.
aura that you portray.
Yeah, but sometimes it's also sometimes it goes more than just the aura. Sometimes the way in which you answer can be very
Snappy
aggressive
or contrite.
And Spelele, I was very, very lucky, and I'll always be grateful that Spelele and I, afterwards, Spelele came to me and said, let's talk about this.
So he
And-
came back to where you were.
Yeah, because we'd broken up.
Yeah. But he left
we
you.
we weren't dating,
No, but,
right?
but he culturally left you.
Left me.
Okay.
And I'm not the one who rejected him. I felt like I'd been rejected by him because anytime I'd ask a question, it was like, well, you don't understand, you don't see. And I was saying, I agree with you. I don't understand. I don't see. Help me understand. Help me see. But I think because you're going through that thing as an individual and you're still trying to figure it out, it's hard to help me see.
You can't verbalize it.
You can't verbalize it. So it becomes a very, very aggressive thing. And then sometimes what happens is because you leave, you think you've been shunned and you haven't. You left.
Well, sometimes you have.
And sometimes you have.
Yeah, but what mainly happens is that you leave a huge identifier and you're grappling for a new one, and in the process of that you might feel that others are in their identity. They've stayed with the identifier that you've left, and you feel shunned because they haven't almost accepted yours, and you're like, it gets frustrating. But all that is it's a little bit of premature judgment, and as you say, you're in that tender moment between, you sort of transitioning between where you are and where you were, or where you want to be. And also, it's like a voyage of discovery. Yeah,
but because you're in this loving unit, right? Whereas Pelele and I, it's a very close friendship. For other people, it is an actual family.
Marriage or whatever,
It's a marriage. You don't understand that things that happen to you affect me, and when you're hurt, I'm hurt, you know, and because we have this contract between us, this binding thing. And so, and perhaps if I can just jump to a little bit, I think for those who are going through this, whether it's Zulu, whether it's religion, whatever it is,
or business culture, you're going to deal with.
We're going to deal with that as well, is when you see your loved one going through something, perhaps you need to be a little bit more, if you can, and this is a big ask, a little bit more tender, you know, and realize it's not necessarily about you as the individual or you as the family. This person, this individual that is going through something is going through it, and they're grappling with it, and so they will be aggressive, they will be all sorts of things. Disagreeable. And I know what it's like, because then you don't want to be around a situation where anytime you try to be close, anytime you're trying to understand, this person snaps at you. Also, you might feel judged that you can't see what they see. Yeah. And it might feel to you like you're dumb and blind and in blind faith, but it's not. Well, maybe sometimes that's what they're saying, but generally, if it's not being said, it's not intended that way. Yeah. And so, but also for those of you who are going through that thing, understand that for those people who have stayed, or who aren't going through what you're going through, it is equally difficult for them. You know, it is equally confusing. And so, as we are talking, what we find is there's this huge gap left, and both sides tend to not know how to approach it, how to heal it. You know, I'm very lucky in that when I decided to join this church, and we're still going through it, but my mom is a very vocal person, and so when she's feeling hurt by something I decide to not do, you know, she will verbalize it, and no matter what my aggression levels might be, and I certainly don't intend them to be, I love my mom, she will fight through that and still say, but this is how I'm feeling, this is what I'm going through. And so it is much easier for us to deal with it, but that's not every being. And so what you'll find is there's a hole left, and nobody knows how to heal it, navigate through it. And I was lucky in that Pelele was incredibly brave, you know, and he came to me and he said, listen, our friendship has got an issue. How did we get here? And I mean, I wouldn't have done it, and I didn't do it. And so for him to come and speak to me was really, really helpful. And I had to sit down and say, this is what I experienced, this is what I went through, this is what you did, this is what I thought I was doing. And something Hiram has helped me understand, and I want to put it out there because I think I'll do it a lot in our videos, is that I can come across as incredibly aggressive. But you know, I understand why. Is because you fight for the underdog, and you will make an effort to look for the other person's point of view, and sometimes to the detriment of your own. Okay. That's what I've discovered. Yeah. So that need to defend the other side is actually good for this forum, because I tend to want to defend one side, and you aggressively, even though you may agree with me, want to defend the other side. So that's actually quite a good dynamic. Yeah, and also the aggression is always on the subject matter and not on the individual, but that can be very hard to understand if somebody's coming at you aggressively, because you're feeling it.
It also
right?
has a personality trait that someone
Yeah.
may be very vocal, but you take it as, hey, they're attacking me.
They're attacking you when they're not.
Yeah.
You know, so I had to understand that perhaps there were things that I was doing to Spelele, and I didn't realize that I was coming across as aggressive. You know, but where Spelele and I are the same is we're equally aggressive. You know, Spelele, you tend to be a bit more personal, but whatever, moving on. And so for family members who feel that the person has left the culture, I would implore you to please just communicate. Take that step, as scary as that step is. Take it towards each other and say, okay, this is where we are, but that doesn't mean we don't love each other. It doesn't mean we don't care for each other. It doesn't mean that we can't be a family.
In the culture of our family,
yeah,
it still remains.
We just, or maybe it's okay for the family to be redefined.
Yeah,
as long as the individuals are there.
It doesn't change that there will be tragedies you've got to deal with, you've got issues to deal with in a family unit, and that hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Just maybe the other dynamic has changed.
Yeah, a very important dynamic, but perhaps without coming across as very airy-fairy, there's still love there. And surely that is the most important thing, is I love you enough to be concerned about you, to want the best for you. And we might disagree.
Whatever that best means.
Yeah, we might disagree on what that best is, but don't question the fact that I will always love you. And I will always want what's best.
100%.
Yeah, I don't think we need to talk about cultures in any other way.
No, well, we're going to be going into the corporate and business culture, which is quite an interesting one to unpack.
Yeah.
It's another dynamic.
Yeah.
But yeah, for now, we just wanted to spend a bit of time chatting about culture and the sort of that contract that we have, either spoken or unspoken, which when broken,
especially in families,
especially in families, when broken can be extremely traumatic, especially on a religious and a cultural level.
And I think why we wanted to speak about it, we know time is a problem, especially where data is concerned, is because both of us feel like we've left the original contract we've had with our families, you know, and our friends sometimes, you know, and we kind of unpacking and seeing how it could have impacted and might still be impacting. And so, South Africa, do you feel that you've gone through similar things, whether it's you leaving something that's,
or someone you know who's left,
and how has it affected you, and what would you say is the best way to deal with that, or how do you think, having listened to us, you've thought about it differently? And this is across the board, so marrying across cultures, it can be as simple as a Zulu person marrying a Sotho person, or a Xhosa person, you know.
Because it's a completely different language.
Yeah, well, Zulu and Sotho definitely, you know, but also we do things differently, and this affects lobola negotiations and all sorts of things, but it might also affect how you and your family are now trying to grapple with this. How about
raise your kids, how you do this,
and within the Hindu religion, from Hindu to Tamil, is that an issue? Sorry, we had a little bit of a glitch. So I was talking about within the Hindu religion, Hindi and Tamil could be very, very different identifiers. And when you try to cross marry, how has that happened? Within white people, Afrikaans and non-Afrikaans. That's the best way I can put it.
There's a broad spectrum outside of Afrikaans.
You know, and maybe Greek.
But it's mainly the English. Ons is die vyand.
Yeah, well, you know, Muslims and Christians, when you've gotten together and perhaps married. So we're trying to encompass the whole of South Africa and trying to say, how have you felt when you're no longer comfortable in the way in which you were raised, in that social contract, as we call it, and you've had to leave it? How have you dealt with it as a family? How would you suggest we deal with it? What are some of the struggles that you're still going through, for those who've left, for those who feel like they've been left?
And those who are still in the middle of that transitory period, understand that it comes to an end, and you don't want to ruin relationships in the process of that change, because when you've gone through the change, the pain or the effort to try and get back is a lot greater than we think.
Yeah. So,
Cool.
you happy?
I'm very happy.
Yeah.
Thank
I'm
you for
happy
that
too.
chat, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. And
Hope so.
please remember to subscribe and to hit the bell notifications so that you can be alerted to when we release new material.
Like and share.
Like and share, and also comment.
We love your comments.
We love them, and we will
we'll-
reply to them as soon as we can. And we'll chat soon.
Bye now.
Take care. Bye now.